Welcome. This is Holly with Wild Blessings, and this is another Teaching Tuesday, a very special occasion this day because I have a fellow herbalist, forager, homesteader. Oh my gosh, hold on. My phone's going off. And kindred spirit here to teach this class for us. And she's got so much to share. Her name is Suzanne Shires. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
And so I can hardly wait to learn from her. She has several books. One is coming out this week, another coming out in February that we'll talk about later. It's all stuff you're going to definitely want to put in your foraging and your wild cooking library. So I don't know how many books you have. How many books do you think you have?
In my library?
Yeah.
Maybe 300.
Okay. So yeah, well, I'll show you mine before you leave. Anyway, so we've got a real expert here. I'm very excited to have her. But before we get started, I just wanted to share with you the herbing around that's already taken place. And so Hank came, and that's Suzanne's friend, and he made these ants on a log. This is just celery with cream cheese, and then we put wild seed zest, which has many, many different kinds of seeds. It has evening primrose, it has plantain, it has lamb's quarter, and then I mixed it up with Trader Joe's everything salt. So I think it's called everything salt. Anyway, so that's really tasty, and that'll be for our wild lunch. We're going to eat lunch together, and we're having, we'll just skip right to dessert. I made these. This is nothing wild about it, but they look like pine cones. And it was really fun. I took pictures of these, and I will show them to you in next week's class when we do a wild Christmas. And then I made a salad, which doesn't have anything extraordinarily wild in it, but it does have some it has some beautiful autumn olive berries. Do you have autumn olive where you live?
I do. I love them. It's one of my favorites.
Is it really? Mm-hmm. Okay. So anyway, this was made by my friend Grace, and she put together an incredible salad dressing that she'll be mixing up. So we'll show pictures of this when we eat lunch later. And then Hank took some Jerusalem artichokes, and he chopped them up for us, and those are boiling right now to go in our soup, so we can have kind of a Jerusalem artichoke wild soup, and that'll be our main lunch. So that was our herbing around. So we honestly have been busy. So now we're going to have tea. But instead of tea, because honestly, it's 57 degrees outside and I'm kind of hot, we're going to have root beer. And she's going to teach us how to make a wild root beer like the way they used to make it. And we're going to get into all those details during class. But right now, we just want to have a sip and try it. So can you tell us how you're pulling this together? Don't describe it. What's in it? What was?
I did make a syrup from the herbs and the roots because it's root beer. And we put a tablespoon or so in each glass.
Okay.
And then we fill it with tonic water, sparkling water, whatever tastes good to you. You can put this in. I like to put it in coffee, and you want to shake it up.
You like to put it in coffee?
I love it in coffee. I love it in coffee. Yeah. It was originally medicinal, so we'll talk about what all of these herbs will do. I'm going to put just a little bit more in that.
Oh, it smells so good. I just heard yesterday about putting eggnog in coffee.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds kind of odd.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And this is just tonic water, or you can use seltzer.
Grace, can you come get these?
Even Sprite. My grandmother would put Sprite in her orange juice and just make a little
This
bubbly.
is Grace. Thank you, sweetie. And then come back and get the other one. Woo.
And you can just use a proportion, a tablespoon or two. If you like a lot more flavor, you can certainly do that. Add a couple
this one's for you.
Thank you.
Here you go, Grace.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. Suzanne brought me this as a gift. This is the root beer syrup. So pretty jazzed about that. So, oh, I didn't make one. I want one. Hold on, follow me. We're attached. Here, just do it in this. You guys get the fancy cups.
You get the good cup.
So the other thing that we've been herbing around with is we took, Hank was blown away at how many shagbark hickory trees I have. And thank you. And so I'm actually cooking up a chai of the hickory nuts and some sassafras so that we can have that for our dessert after lunch. Okay, let's try it. Oh, that's really good.
It's got a good flavor to it.
That's amazing. What'd you guys think? That good?
That's fine.
That's awesome. All right, so let me go ahead and share with you a little bit about my friend. She grew up in North Carolina as a native herbalist, and she's a homesteader in a large family with acres of gardens preserving food naturally. She learned sustainability from mountain folk grandparents. Wow, what a heritage. Being among the first generation in her family to be born in a hospital. Granny women and country doctors were just a part of life, with old ways to heal from the plants and remedies of Appalachia. Her homestead is now a happy little mix of herb gardens, fruit orchards, and vegetable beds designed to make the most of sustainable living. I want to come to your place. That sounds wonderful. Over the years, she began a serious education with over 300 books into herbalism and nutrition, probably lots of classes, including foraging wild foods and medicines, fermenting, winemaking, finding nutrition in wild foods, as well as homemade vinegars and herbal remedies. Her apothecary is full of remedies from her gardens, as well as the woods and fields around her. Suzanne's focus is on healthy, sustainable prepping, wild food survival, and preparing herbal remedies for so many issues. She believes food and herbs are the best medicine for a healthy lifestyle. Being able to quickly replace nutritional food in a time of disaster is key. Making sure that health and wellness is obtainable for everyone on her homestead. And now she's expanding her horizons to share through her books and her wonderful website to all of us. So we're privileged to have her here to share with us, to learn. My grandfather said that a day I haven't learned is a day I haven't lived. And so I've got a feeling we're all going to learn something today. And so I just wanted to have you share with us a little bit about your journey and what brought you to this point. Even though we just read some of it, you can get into whatever details you want. So, and then she's going to take over and she's going to share with us how to make this root beer. Can you help me?
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to do some amazing things with Evening Primrose. I'm very excited about that. And then she made this incredible cornbread. Whoops.
I'm letting you finish.
Oh, she made this amazing cornbread, which is it burning right now?
It may be ready to come out of the
Okay,
oven.
I'll get it out while you're teaching.
Okay.
And so we're going to be eating the cornbread for lunch, and I'm going to put it here on the counter so that we can all see how beautiful it is. So go ahead and take it away.
All right. Okay. Can you hear me, Jason?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, this looks amazing.
That's a wonderful recipe. I'll tell you about it in just a minute, and it will be on the website, and I'll give that recipe to Holly.
Tell us the name of your website.
It's simplehomesteadliving.com is the name of my website. It's has a lot of recipes, a lot of information on it.
Including, she has a blog on 19 ways to use zucchini. So I'm like, what? So I'm definitely checking that out. Whoa.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
I won't interrupt you.
Oh, that's quite all right. Here's yours. The first thing that we were going to talk about, as Holly mentioned, is Evening Primrose. This is a wonderful herb for so many people. Not only is it a nutrition that you can take internally, but it's really good for your skin. So I'll make not only an oil to cook with, to sprinkle with, the seed to sprinkle with, but also make a shower oil with it, and it's wonderful. And I'll show you how to do that. If you've ever seen a primrose, yeah, show the pictures. I gave Jason a couple pictures to show. The first one will be the. Do you have the pod picture up or
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the first picture is
The rosette.
showing the rosette on
Okay.
the ground.
That's fine. That's what you'll actually see now is the rosette that he's showing. That's the leaves. Those are actually edible, even though they look a little red. Once they get frosted or frozen, they'll turn red. So, but they're still edible. It may change the flavor a little bit, but sometimes the different flavors for different seasons, even with the same plant. It's amazing how that happens. The other picture is of the pods. That's the flowers after the flower is gone and the seed is in there. When these little pods are green, they're edible just like they are. You can pull those off and put them in a salad or just eat them as a trail snack. In my garden, I call it a trail snack. Oh, that looks good. A trail snack.
Look,
But
guys.
but that could be while you're in the garden, when you're eating peas, grab your pods off of your evening primrose. And these look dry. And hold your hand out here, Holly. You can see how many, I don't know if you can see that, how many seeds are falling out of
It's
that.
like pepper.
Yeah, they're real small seeds like chia. Those are highly nutritious, very medicinal for health, for liver, for several different issues. And you would think when you turn this over like that they'll be empty, but they won't. There's a lot more seeds in there. So, and I know you probably can't see me do this, but these little individual pods, if you take and crush those, multiple seed will fall out. There's just a ton of seed in there. So I collect these in a pillowcase when I'm out in the garden or out in the field that I collect these from. Make sure you get them in a clean place because they will grow in substandard soil. So you want to make sure that there's no chemicals. Anytime you're foraging, of course, you want to make sure there's no chemicals. But when you take and mash these little pods, the seed will fall out. And the seed look like chia. Now this, I could take this outside and winnow out the trash and the parts, but this seed is what you want. This is the nutritional medicinal part. When I make my cooking oil or my shower oil, I use an oil. I don't put an oil on my skin that I won't put on that I won't take internally. So I use a sunflower. I get this from a European market near me. I use sunflower oil. I also use palm oil. I'm sorry, not palm oil. Apricot kernel oil. Palm oil is not a good oil, but I use apricot kernel oil because it's very good for your skin. Walnut oil is another oil that you can use on your skin, and it's very good for you internally too. So I use a little mini crock pot, one of these little dip pots. I have several of these. One is what I melt beeswax in, and then I have another that I found at a yard sale, and I use it for something like this. But I take about 3 tablespoons of the seed that you can see here in this bowl. This is just when we gathered here. It took us 3 minutes to gather this much, but I'll winnow out the trash and then put the seed in my little mini crock pot and fill it with oil. Now I'm not going to do that here, but you get the idea. And let that heat. This is a low heat crock pot. If you're going to do it in a regular crock pot, put it in a mason jar and put about 3 inches of water in it. Turn it on low and put a little 3 inches of water in it and let it simmer overnight or for several hours. But you want to infuse that oil with the nutrition from those seeds. Now you can leave that seed in if you're going to cook with that oil, or if you probably want to strain it through a coffee filter if you're going to use it on your skin. You don't want anything rough unless you're going to take that seed and do an exfoliate. You can do that with the seed. Just don't let it go down your drain, because you may stop up your tub. But that's your evening primrose oil. These seed like this can also be sprinkled. I did sprinkle a little bit of this in the batter before I baked the cornbread. So there's evening primrose seeds in the cornbread as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that.
What's the nutrition?
The nutrition is there's oleo. I forgot the name of it. Oleanic acid, I believe is the name of it, plus multiple vitamins, several minerals in this. So evening primrose is one of those seeds that it's one of the good seeds, I call it. I will mix this with stinging nettle seed, and you only want to eat a little stinging nettle seed. So you could put maybe a tablespoon to a quarter teaspoon of stinging nettle seed. And then there's lamb's quarter seed. There's so many other seeds that you can put with this that makes a sprinkle, and you can sprinkle it on food like you would chia. It doesn't get the mucilage like a chia, but it's great on oatmeal or a porridge or yogurt. I love it in yogurt because it's
celery sticks.
On top of the sesame. Yeah, we'll sprinkle some of that on top of our ants on a log. Is that what you called it? Ants on a log? That's cute. So, Okay, so that is a little information on evening primrose. Look for it now. You'll find these now. If you look in a field or at the edges of woods, along ditches. By the way, this is the evening primrose that has the yellow flower, the sundrop evening primrose. They're tall. They're about sometimes 6 feet tall or even taller, usually four-ish feet tall, not the little pink one that grows real low to the ground. This is the sundrop evening primrose, and the flowers will be yellow. But look for these now, and this is when you'll get your seeds from these. So I'm going to set this to the side. The next thing, you want me to talk about the cornbread next, or the root beer?
I wanted you to point out how the seed pods themselves can be used for decoration.
Oh, yes.
Or, I mean, look at how you can make them into little arms for forest berries.
Oh, yeah. You can take let me get this one. You can take a little, if you're going to do like the dolls or even several different, I can't think of one right offhand that you would use it for, but you could put these, turn them upside down. They're great. They're beautiful on a Christmas tree. You could just turn this into like you would a pine cone, turn it into a mini decoration for your tree, or put it in a little posy bouquet. Yeah, it would be beautiful. And the stems are long, so you can take and cut these off and use them in quite a few decorations. We could even put it in the this one here, like that. So they look good with milkweed. They look good with, they're pretty with several things that we've got here on the table. Mullein, that I think they look pretty with the mullein because you have the soft leaves, and then this is just a little bit rough, and then especially with the milkweed pod as well. So there are several things you can use those for in decoration, and just have them in your vases in your house. So, okay. You want me to talk about the cornbread or the root beer next?
Whatever you want.
Okay. Let's talk about the cornbread, and then we'll talk about the root beer. I'll give you the recipe for the root beer. This recipe, I call it Lillery's broccoli cornbread, and broccoli is
I want you to be able to see it. See that, guys?
It turns out really pretty.
Yeah.
This recipe is at least 50 years old that I know of, because my mother-in-law made this for as long as I can remember. She was in the same church. Her family and my family grew up in the same church. So every church supper, church dinner, she would make this cornbread, and it would always get gone really quick. She would get up real early before church that Sunday and get it in the oven so it would still be hot for the meal after church. And it's just delicious. If you're familiar with a Mexican cornbread that has a lot of stuff in it, some people say that's not cornbread. If it's got something in it, it's not cornbread, but I love it. But she would put broccoli in it. Well, I was making this for my family, and when I really got to studying nutrition and wild foods that were so much more nutritious than our manufactured or processed food, I started putting wild ingredients in it. And believe it or not, there's at least 10 different ingredients here on the tray that are in this cornbread, and I foraged these yesterday. Hank helped me forage these as well. So there's still a lot of food out there, even though we've had frost. Some people have had snow in this area. Depending on where you are, of course, there's going to be less, but there's still green food to be had. And I'll just kind of tell you what's in this. I have pine needles. Yes, pine needles are edible. You can dice those up very fine. If you don't want to feel like you're biting into a piece of a pine tree, dice those up very fine. Plantain, dandelion leaves, violet leaves. Yeah. Plantain. This is a lance leaf plantain. Most of the larger Plantago major, which is a large or even a smaller, but it's a rounder leaf. This one is more lance shaped, and it's called lance leaf plantain. Very nutritional, very medicinal. One of my favorite plants, probably my top 5. medicinal plants as well as edible plants. Has a really green flavor. Some people, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but you'll really want to get this one in your diet. And it's still available now, especially in a sheltered, you're still going to find it in sheltered fields where it's not getting too terribly cold. Grows in a rosette like this. So you see the little crown. The roots are edible as well, but this is the lance leaf plantain, not the round that most people are used to.
I never used the roots.
The roots have a kind of like a dandelion flavor.
Okay.
It's a bitter. So bitters are really important in our diet. Our diets are too sweet. So if you taste something bitter and you don't like it, that's probably because our diet's a little too sweet. So when you have better digestion when you use bitters. So you may have heard of Swedish bitters. Well, I'll make a recipe called Southern bitters. So I'll talk about that at another time. We don't have enough time today.
Is it in your cookbook?
It will be, yes. I wasn't going to put it in there, but I think I've decided I'll go ahead and add that to the seasonings book. Violets are another one that are edible. Some people don't like them because they do have a little bit of a mucilage, which means a slimy feel. Not slimy, slick, almost like okra.
Okay.
And if you get that feeling of okra that you may not like, they are a little bit more slick. Also, a ground ivy. If you're familiar with ground ivy, it's also called gill over the ground. Some people call it creeping Charlie. And these common names can be confusing sometimes, so just be aware. There's no other that I know of called gill over the ground or creeping Charlie. Dandelion, you always know dandelion by the backwards teeth. There's a couple of other lookalikes on dandelion, and they're all edible. There's not a toxic lookalike for dandelion. Very important green to put into your diet. It again will be a little bit bitter, but it's more mild in wintertime. So if you can find it, or you have a protected area in one of your gardens, let them grow, and the roots will get longer. The roots are very nutritious. My garden still had a little bit of stinging nettle. I know a lot of people don't like stinging nettle, but it's highly nutritious. And if you don't know stinging nettle, you will when you find it. It'll bite you. But it does have hairs on it. But as it wilts and dries, they don't sting you. So some people will do a medication or a medicine type method called urtication, where you hit. I just felt that one. There's a little bit of bite left in this one. But that's actually a medicinal benefit to especially aching joints. So when you're eating this, or you boil it, or you simmer it, or you dry it, the sting is neutralized. So you're not going to get that when you eat it. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to. You're not going to get that when you eat it. But if it's fresh and you can just hit it on your skin like that, it's going to give a sting, and it'll last several hours. But you'll be amazed at how your joints won't hurt after that. It'll really make them feel a lot better. There's quite a few stories of people throwing themselves in the nettle field for punishment. Pliny the Elder, people like that, from way back literature, around 1300, something like that. They would do that. They would throw themselves because they had committed some horrendous crime, and they felt so bad they were just going to put themselves in the nettle field, and that was a pretty hefty fine to me, because that really hurts. Another ingredient that will be in the root beer is juniper, or juniper berries. There's a little bit here. Here's a little bit as well. Juniper berries, it's the ingredient in gin that gives it that gin taste, but it's highly medicinal, and you can eat them. These are actually little cones, so you want to process them. So I boiled these, or simmered these in the root beer, and it gives it a distinct flavor. So another one that's my favorite, wild onion. You just can't get enough some people call it wild garlic, but I love it. You just want to take and clip these off, little, about that far off the ground. Some of them, once they get a little bit windburned, or maybe even the frost may get to them, you can just chop that off, about that much off, just clip it off, and then chop these up like you would use chives or like you would use onions. I make seasonings with these. I use these extensively in both of the food books, the Beyond the Garden Gate Wild Food and Beyond the Garden Gate Wild Seasonings. So we'll use a lot of onion. Get used to it. There is a toxic lookalike, and if it doesn't smell like onion, then you don't want to use it. So when you see it, the wild onion is going to be hollow. So when you break it, you can see that it's hollow, and it'll have an onion smell, garlicky, oniony smell. It is an alum, but the lookalikes are not alum, so they will not have that onion smell. So just be aware of that when you're looking for your wild onions. Back to our evening primrose. Remember I told you as the leaves get hit with frost, they may turn red. These, I happened to find these this morning, and they were still pretty green, but you can see how they're turning red on the edges. Still completely edible. Dice them up, chop them up, put them in a salad, bake them, put them in a soup. Not everything that's edible will always be palatable in its whole form, but it's still going to be very edible and very nutritious if you chop it up and add it to other ingredients, which is what we did with everything that's in, I believe that's everything. Yeah. Oh, the last ingredient. A lot of people don't realize this is edible. It's edible in small amounts. Does anybody, y'all know what this is? Y'all know what this is. You do. It's reindeer moss. Reindeer moss. I take this, and especially if it's wet or after a rain, kind of cleaning out. This hasn't been cleaned, but just pick out your little pieces. Take a pair of scissors and just snip these very tiny little bits until you get a pile, half a cup, whatever, and you can throw it into a soup or into a cornbread batter like I did here. So it's one of those that you have to be a little bit careful with. Everybody says, oh, I've got a ton of that, but it takes about 30 years to get this much. So if it goes away, it takes a long time to get it back. So be aware of that. There's environmental issues, animals traipsing on it, people traipsing on it, and it kills it, destroys it. And it looks so plentiful, but it's really an endangered. So be aware of that when you're harvesting. This will last me quite a while, this little piece. So I do harvest it very carefully, even though where I get it, there's just a ton of it. But once it's gone, it's going to be gone for a while, So I'm very careful about how much I take.
What does it taste like?
By itself like this, it's very brittle. It's dry. It doesn't have a minty flavor. It just has, best way to describe it is a green flavor. It's a lichen, of course. So it doesn't have, just if you were just to take a bite out of it, it's not that pleasant. But when I put it in with other greens, it's very nice. It gives a little bit of texture, especially to a green that doesn't hold up as well. So it gives a little bit of texture. I've used this in a ferment recently. I decided to try it as a seasoning. So I chopped it like I just talked about, and sprinkled it into a ferment. Actually, it was fermented Jerusalem artichokes, and it was really good. So I use it not only as an ingredient, but as a seasoning as well.
And it's nutritious.
It's nutritious. I don't know right offhand what nutrients are in it, other than like any lichen. There's those amino acids. There's those phytonutrients that are in it, that there's a long list, and I didn't bring that with me, and I don't have them memorized. But when I found out it was edible, I wanted to try it. And a lot of people don't think it's palatable, there's a difference. But when you put it in with other ingredients, it's very nutritious and delicious. A couple of other things I forgot about. I also have Yellowdock. Very nutritious. Not only the leaf can be eaten, it is a bitter green, so you may want to just use a small amount in, say, your collards. But that's how you incorporate your wild foods into your regular food. You start with a little bit. So once you identify Yellowdock, some people call it curly dock, Rumex. This is Rumex crispus. But once you find the Yellowdock and you know what it is, you can take a leaf or two or three and put it into your whole pot of collards and just incorporate in, and you'll get to where you can eat more of it. The root is edible as well, but it's highly bitter, very medicinal for your liver. So if you're worried about your liver or you want to increase your liver function, Yellowdock is a really good one to add to your diet or to your supplement arsenal. It has iron. It's iron and several other things that are nutritious, and it helps cleanse the liver, which is an issue for a lot of people, to cleanse that liver and the elimination system. The last ingredient I almost forgot is goldenrod. There is still some goldenrod around. If you'll look at this, if you can see this, it's a little tinged. We had quite a frost last night, so it did get tinged. However, still edible at this point. You can take these little buds that didn't open like this and chop those up real fine. And I put about a half a cup of that and chopped up about a half a cup of the greens as well. So all total, this has about 2 cups of greens in it instead of that package of frozen broccoli. So that's how I wilded up. That's my verb. I wilded food. I wilded up this recipe from my mother-in-law, and it's delicious. It's one of my favorites to start with. I'll give that list that I used. And again, you don't have to use these exactly half cup, half cup, half cup. I wound up with about 2.5 cups total packed of greens. So if it's 2/3 of it is goldenrod and a half a cup of wild onion, you use what you have that day. So you can get a list and know what to look for once you start looking for wild greens and wild edibles. And if you have a bunch of this today and you only have this much of something else, that's what you work with.
We're just adding the nutrition like off the charts.
Exactly.
You might not even notice or taste them, but the nutrition is there.
Right, exactly. You have so much nutrition on this plate. You can make, talking about pine needles, it's becoming very popular to make pine needle tea. Well, that's a seasoning as well. You can put it with salt and make a piney flavored salt that doesn't sound great, but when you put it on fish, if you ever cooked fish on a cedar board, well, that's the same flavor that you're getting, and it's much more available than the flavor you would get off of that cedar board, because you can control that. You can sprinkle it on. That'll be in the book as well. Couple of different things to talk about later.
Well, I promise you, all of that is going to be put in our salad today.
Okay. All right. Let me tell you real quickly about the syrup. Now, what I did, the ingredients that went into the root beer syrup, you can play with these the way you like to. Some people like more, say, sassafras, but the ingredients that I put in there are sassafras. I put in smilax. A lot of people call this sawbriar, or they may call it sarsaparilla, but a smilax is that root. Both of these, the sassafras and the smilax root. Also, burdock root went in there as well. Some people are a little concerned about sassafras because it does have the saffron in it, that there were studies back in the 70s about sassafras being poisonous and causing cancer. That poor rat that they fed 4 gallons a day to, the equivalent, did develop tumors. But when you're taking it in a moderate amount, when you're using it in your diet in a very moderate amount, it's not going to cause those issues. If you're concerned about it, you can always leave it out. That's the joy of wild food. You work with what you get or what you want to work with. Also, there was juniper berry, sumac. Juniper berry, sumac, sassafras, and then I put clove and cinnamon as well in mine because I like it. And I also had ginger in it as well. There's also a burdock root in this. So that's the roots that I used was sassafras, smilax, and burdock root in there. And you can use those in different amounts. I put about a half a pot in my crock pot of water and put about a 6-inch piece of the roots and 3 or 4 cinnamon sticks, a little handful of clove. If you like a lot of clove, you can certainly add more. Let this simmer, and then I boiled it down. After it simmered all night, I reduced it by half, and I used a sorghum molasses to sweeten it. You can use sugar. You can use honey if you want to. I wanted the traditional recipe, which was sorghum molasses. So that's what I put in there. And you'll notice that it's not very thick. You think of syrup as being more like a maple syrup. Well, I didn't use as much sugar because I feel like it doesn't need it. So mine's a little bit thinner. If you don't use enough sugar or use a lot of sugar in syrups, they don't get as thick. That doesn't matter, but because I love this in my coffee. So I'll put this in coffee. We had it in the tonic water. You can put it in ciders. You can just hot root beer. When you drink sassafras hot, by the way, it will make you sweat. So if you get that little rush of heat, it may be from the sassafras where it's hot. So that's just one of the interesting characteristics of sassafras. So.
It reminds me of the pharmacies. I'll just stand next to
Okay.
you. We'll go on this side.
Okay.
So it reminds me of pharmacies used to have soda fountains. I remember them as a kid. Do you remember them?
Mm-hmm.
And but they started back in the early 1900s as a place where Coca-Cola was made, only it was called Coke, and root beer was made, and even Dr. Pepper was made as a medicinal soda or tonic, and they were called tonic waters.
Mm-hmm.
And so they literally were medicinal and good for you.
Very
So,
refreshing. It
I
kind of
know.
just gave you a lift.
So then the soda companies came in and took over and turned it into mostly sugar and a whole bunch of chemicals. But really, a good soda is medicinal and delicious.
It is.
That is delicious. I'm so excited about that. And like she said, you can make it thicker with more sugar if that is your thing.
Mm-hmm.
But this is definitely going to go into our salad for sure. Oh my word. This is awesome.
I'm going to give you this.
No, I want to ask you questions.
Okay.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about your book. She's got one that just came out this week, guys. So you might want to get it for Christmas. And why don't you tell us about that one, and then we'll talk about the ones coming in February.
All right. The first one that is coming out this week is called Wild Herb Gardening. Mm-hmm. It's how to get wild herbs onto your homestead, into your garden, and how to make remedies with those herbs. Things like that we talk about, like that you may not have a sassafras tree near you or in your yard, but you can plant one and then you can harvest from it. Sassafras, by the way, also makes filet gumbo seasoning, so you can take those leaves and use those as well. So to be able to go out in your yard and just pull those herbs as you need them.
It's so empowering.
Oh, yes, it is. Yeah. So that's why.
So how would you find a sassafras tree to bring to your yard?
You can find those usually in a deciduous forest. They don't grow mixed with pines too much. They grow by themselves, but they do run on runners. So you usually can find short ones, little small saplings. If you have permission where you're going to harvest it, you can just dig that up, leave a little bit of root, and those are very easy to transplant. So you can get those in your yard, and it makes a beautiful tree. It doesn't get not a huge tree, but it's
beautiful every season.
It is, and it turns really bright red. One way to recognize it is it'll have 3 distinct leaf shapes: a mitten, right mitten, a left mitten, and then one that is just like this. So you have the leaf that does this. Sometimes you do see them where it looks like the leaf has 2 mittens or 2 thumbs on the mitten. So, but that's pretty distinct. Most trees don't do that. So, but the sassafras tree will do that.
So we had a couple of classes on the wild garden and bringing in very intentionally the things to your porch or your yard or your acre, or you've got 3 acres. So doing that is, you can look back on our classes and learn from that, or she's got this book on how to do that, which is, I wish I'd had that before teaching those classes. That's amazing.
Thank you.
How many plants do you talk about?
Overall, we talk in that book. There's 45 in that one, but each one tells about what they do, what you can do with that plant. So there's about 10 pages.
That's kind of like why you want it.
Why you want it is just as important as how to get it.
If you could only have 5 wild edible plants on your land, what would they be?
What would they be? Yellowroot, sumac. I'm lucky enough to have pine, mullein. Let's see, yellowroot, sumac, pine, sassafras is a very good one, and boneset.
What about poke?
Poke.
Oh, gosh.
You're going to make me.
I know. It's like saying, which children do you want to say?
Right.
Well, the rest of them go off.
Poke
into
is awesome. We could talk all day about poke.
I know. I did do a class on poke if you want to look at that, but I think you probably could take me even deeper on poke. That's
I've made
amazing.
poke
Suzanne,
wine.
tell us where your book's available.
Book is available on Barnes and Noble, and also it will be on Amazon. It's not on Amazon yet, but it will be. It's at barnesandnoble.com and then simplehomesteadliving.com.
That's so exciting. Okay, so that, Jason, you put a picture up there for us of that.
If folks were looking at the book. If
Okay.
you'd like, I can certainly show the website.
Yes, let's talk about her website. I already told you about the 19 ways to use zucchini, but you've been, honestly, I noticed that the website's not quite up to date, and I have a feeling it's because she's been so busy reading books. So I'm kind of glad that you haven't kept that going as much. Like
I
I've
have
done the same thing on my
website. The website is 10 years old. I've had it for about that long. And I just had somebody start about 2 weeks ago. He's revamping the entire website.
Wow.
So if you do go to it, as in today or tomorrow, and it doesn't look quite the way it should, or if things are out of whack, he's working on it today. I talked to him this morning. We just had a Zoom meeting on new logos and things. So that is changing entirely. All the blogs, just getting a facelift. All the blogs are still there. The products, my herbal line will be on there. The products are changing, but there's a lot of information, and there'll be even more information. And I'll also have my videos. The Simple Homestead Living YouTube channel will be connected there as well.
It's wonderful. So you sound like you're pretty independent with God's gifts in nature. That you like, is that your pharmacy and your
my pharmacy? Yes, is I grow
grocery store.
Yeah, my grocery store. I grow most of my herbs, over about 200 that I use regularly. Most of them are available. I may order half a dozen, but I either grow them or find them close to me while I'm wildcrafting. And then those are foods as well. So it's amazing how much medicine you'll get in your food when your food becomes nutritious.
Right. So like just adding this to our already nutritious salad is we're just going to be wide-eyed.
And you'll feel it
we do feel it. Every time I've ever had a wild food feast, everyone leaves here feeling like, telling me, I feel so energetic. I feel so full of,
that's true.
It's true.
It's just amazing how much better you'll feel. You'll notice things, those main issues that everybody seems to have as they start getting older. They'll start decreasing when you get a better nutrition, more nutrition, and more bioavailable. Yes. There's added nutrition. People will look at things that are enhanced or enriched, and what they've done is taken away nutrition and added substandard nutrition.
Crazy. It's true.
But you don't get that in God's garden. He gives you everything you need. So much nutrition. And when I keep saying that, but I'm talking vitamins, minerals, and then those phytonutrients that we don't think about, as in the alphabet, the other things that are in there that they just are beginning to study. So there's just so much nutrition in the wild. And even in this time, even in this season, most everybody should be able to find something. It may take a little work, and you may have to really study, but you'll be prepared for that next winter. So, and then you'll have 2 seasons, 3 seasons before that to get it prepared for your slumber, for your getting next to the fire to make your wild soup. So, and cornbread.
Yes. So I cannot wait to eat lunch. This is going to be so delicious. The cornbread looks delicious. The root beer was so good. We'll show pictures of it next week. And let's see, do I have any questions, Grace? Do you want to ask? If you guys have questions, ask them in the comments. I'm sure that she'd be happy to answer them for you. Check out her website, Simple Homestead Living. So you have animals as well?
I do. Right now, I don't have chickens. I've had 60 chickens. Okay. Because of some issues traveling, I was not able to keep them, but I'm about to have them again. I've had goats, and then we're going to get a whole plethora. So it's been a long time since I've done animals, but since I've had them, and
but
I love them.
The skills, and so that's the point. Is that one of the things we can do for any uncertainties in the future is not only gather and be prepared and wise, but gather up skills, which is probably even more important, because if you have those skills, then you are someone people can look to and you can help others, and it gives you a sense of confidence, and it's really empowering.
It is, especially when if you get to the point of you're harvesting your own meat, that takes a little bit of a step. So you may want to start with, if you're just getting started, start with your greens, and you can always go to that. It's not easy for everybody to raise an animal and then harvest it, but it's a part of life.
Yeah, my dad had a cow and they called it Toby, and it was standing for Toby Eaten, because they had to keep in mind that we're going to be eating this guy.
Yeah.
So I guess you get to the point where it doesn't. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I have friends who
You're
say,
like
"Who are we
eating
eating
rats."
today?" You know,
They
because
say, "Who are we eating?"
who are we eating today?
Oh, that's
So,
funny. Okay. And
So-
then what I'm real excited about is that she's doing some wild food cookbooks. One is on seasoning and the other is just on wild food plants. And that's coming out in February. So probably we'll have you back to be able to promote those when they come out.
I'd love to.
But can you kind of like give a little bit of an idea of what that's going to be
Mhm.
like?
The series, it is a series, Beyond the Garden Gate, Wild Food.
I love that name.
I like-
Beyond the Garden Gate, guys.
Yeah, so you're bringing that nutrition into along with your garden foods. The seasonings, I do so many seasonings. I just had an entire book to do. So not only wild foods and how to incorporate those into your diet. And as a matter of fact, every recipe has, for example, the wild onion we were talking about, I'll say half cup wild onion tops or half cup yellow onion. So anybody can use these recipes. And as you get one ingredient, or you learn how to take one ingredient and work with it, you can substitute the domestic vegetable for the wild vegetable.
Right.
So it's pretty easy for most anybody to use.
Yeah. I call it the math of foraging. So at first it's addition. You're just adding this to your cornbread, and then it can actually become substitution, where you're actually using the cattail as a cucumber instead of adding it to your cucumbers.
Exactly.
Because it tastes literally exactly the same.
And wild nuts, acorns, you hear a lot now about acorn flour, but there's also wild hickory flour, wild pecans, walnuts, black walnuts, all of these different nuts and grains that can be incorporated into your diet.
Yeah.
And it's completely different than a domesticated grain or nut. So really delicious.
Free for the knowing and the picking. So, thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to lunch. Yes.
Would you like to mention this Christmas?
Yes. Okay. So I want to mention several things. Here, I'll take that back.
Yeah.
Thank you, Suzanne. This was great. I've got a feeling that her childhood was quite interesting. By the way, do you have a sit spot? Do you go out and in nature every day just to kind of sit and be with God?
I do. I have a swing that I love, and it's under an apple tree. I call it the grandma tree. This apple tree just has arms that'll just reach around.
Really?
So I go and sit in my swing under my grandma tree.
Can you send us a picture of that?
I will. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, because we're really into that here at Wild Blessings. I've got like 15 sit spots, but they're all special to me. That sounds wonderful. Okay, thanks, honey. All right, so I wanted to just be very grateful for those of you that have shared on our contest about there were 2 contests this week. One was on how to celebrate Christmas and how to magically, just inspirational things, songs that we love, things that we can listen to. And I told you all about, I don't know where I put it, but the Star of Bethlehem. So I hope you've watched that, because that will definitely remind you of what God did when he sent Christ to earth. All right. The other one I want to recommend today is called The Chosen Christmas Special. And they actually came out in the theaters. And so they're all over the country. I don't know what the statistics are, but I heard that it was actually beating box what do they call that, Jace? Box office numbers from all the other films. This has beat them all, and it's just doing incredibly well. And instead of just having it for the weekend like they were going to, they've extended it all the way to Christmas. So if you haven't been to the theaters, then check it out. Yeah.
On the screen, folks can see where to go online to find information. It's peoplemustknow.thechosen.tv.
Yes, it's called People Must Know. I mean, it's unbelievable what God has done for us, and in his love, what he has provided. And the story is so beautiful, and the music is magical. But the story is incredible. So be sure to check that out. And I'm going to keep those 2 contests going until next week, because next week we're going to actually do the wild food Christmas, where I'm going to have a turkey with high bush cranberry and all kinds of wonderful things, because my son is coming home. So he's going to help me cook it. And then we're going to talk about the oils, the essential oils like frankincense and myrrh that were used in the life of Jesus Christ. And that is just the most amazing talk. And so I'm really excited about that. I'm excited about my son coming home, and he's going to help me decorate a little tree that I actually found. Somebody moved away and left their Christmas tree on the front porch, so I took it home. So we're going to have that decorated for next week, and lots of good things. Looking forward to. Merry Christmas to you all. Thank you so much for joining me. And what did you want to say?
Share, please.
Oh, please share.
And
share. You want everyone to hear about Suzanne and all the cool things she's up to. Check all the things out that she's doing on her website. And she probably has a Facebook group. I haven't checked. She does. And she has also things on YouTube. So there's just a huge community of us. And I'm so excited that many of you are going to be teaching in the future with me in January and even part of February. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And we'll just be learning a lot.
would you like to tell them about Patreon too?
Oh, okay. Yeah. If you want to support me, check out Patreon. God bless you all. Merry Christmas.